All right, Steve, like I said, I can't thank you enough for coming on today. I guess for you, it's the morning, right? Because you're 3 hours behind me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's 1 o'clock here. So it's what, when does that make it? 11, 10 o'clock there?
10 o'clock. You got it.
Okay. All right. Well, I
Which
appreciate it.
nowadays in quarantine land is early since
Yeah,
we're all just sleep until God knows when with the kids not in school.
that's true. My kids, I'm like, don't you have to get up? No, 10 o'clock, 10:30. Don't wake me.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah, I usually start meetings out here at like 8, if, because there's a lot of networking meetings in the morning talking to
Oh
people.
yeah.
So Steve, if we could go back, I mean, I listened to a lot of your videos online, and I told you I subscribed to Podcast Magazine, but maybe we can go back to like kind of where you're from, where you grew up, and how you kind of evolved into this expert on reinventing yourself and finding your way and all those types of things.
Yeah. Uh, man, it's been a lot of ebbs, flows, and turns, and zigs and zags, I guess. When you come right down to it, looking back on the career, just it seems a little disjointed from nightclubs to actually own my own nightclub, DJing in clubs,
Okay.
to real estate development and catalogs and .coms, launching really early on CompuServe's electronic mall in 1993, and
Right.
that eventually becoming liquor.com in 1998. It's just been an interesting journey to say the least. And so having reinvented my life as often as I have, that's how I've really just taken on this moniker of helping people really understand what their unique value is and how to then create the plan for bringing that vision of who they really are to fruition, and then how to generate enough visibility and revenue to support all that fun stuff. So it's been an interesting track, but that's really what I help people do at this joint,
Yeah.
this particular juncture.
Right. And it seems that a lot of your stuff online now is really about like how to use, I know it's not all that you talk about, but the videos that I watch is like how to use the podcasting platform to kind of promote your, whatever it is you do. Right.
Yeah. I mean, podcasting is certainly what we would call our core visibility strategy.
Yeah.
And every business needs a core visibility strategy, whether it's traditional media or whether it's PR or whether it's social media or radio. I mean, whatever it might be, every business needs to have clarity around their core visibility strategy. And for us, needless to say, obviously it is podcasting for sure.
Right. Right. So did you grow up out in the West Coast, originally from San Diego?
Chicago is where I grew up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a little bit different than San Diego.
Oh yeah, a little
Certainly
bit.
Nowadays. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So you started out in the liquor business? Is that where you were originally, or
Started out originally in the
nightclubs?
nightclub business. Yeah, nightclub business way back in the day as a DJ, and then I owned my own club when I was 19. It was actually a non-alcoholic club that I opened up. And my family was in the liquor business for a number of years. My grandfather started Foremost Liquor Stores in Chicago, which eventually had stores in New York and other places around the country. And when I graduated from school and after the nightclub thing kind of ran its course, I came back to Chicago to work with the family business. And at that point, they were doing okay, but it needed some reinvention, and that's where we started focusing more on the let's just call it FTD for wine and champagne and spirits. So it was a little piece called Liquor by Wire.
Okay. Well, there's no internet in those days, right? You weren't doing too much online.
Not originally when I first started in 91, but by 93, CompuServe had kind of put its way, onto the map there, and Prodigy and AOL and all that fun stuff. And so we did launch on CompuServe's electronic mall a store for Liquor by Wire in 1993. And it was the predecessor to everything that we did online.
Got it. So you really before that, it was brick and mortar retail, traditional liquor business at stores.
Yeah, it was brick and mortar, exactly. And there still are brick and mortar Foremost liquor stores in Chicago and some other places. But our involvement stopped in 1994 when we started focusing on the electronic side of the world.
Right. Yeah, well, that's where, Gary Vaynerchuk comes from, over by me. His dad had his little liquor store, not called the Wine Library. It's this enormous building, but it was all built online because how much liquor can you sell locally, I guess?
Yeah. I knew Gary way back in the day.
Yeah, in the early days when he was. So then, what got you out of why'd you get out of the liquor business? Just moved on to some other things
Well, we had the S1 filed and we were ready to go public in March of 2000.
for liquor.com.
For liquor.com, yeah.
Okay.
And obviously that's when everything imploded, and that was that first real big.
The first implosion, yeah.
First implosion, yeah. And how old are you, Mitch?
I'm 53, so.
Okay. Yeah, so we're right around the same generation. So our, it's like my theme of the day right now is, give the Gen Xer in your life a hug. I mean, it's like, how many beat downs can we take?
Right.
So
that's true.
And that was the first beatdown, was March of 2000. I got hit really hard by that one because we had the like I said, the S1 file, and we were ready to go public in the whole nine. And of course that was the beginning of the end for that initial .com bubble that exploded. So then that's when I walked away from the liquor business for about 9 years and went into real estate development.
So what kind of development? Well, first let me ask you a question. So the liquor.com, that just never went public, right? The whole thing got pulled?
Yep, whole thing got pulled, never went public. Stupidly, we had signed away our management rights. Wall Street wanted to see, certain gray-haired lettered saviors to come on in and do what needed to be done in order to take the company public. So we bought into that hook, line, and sinker and signed management rights to the company.
Right.
Just totally blinded by that .com light.
Yeah.
And then when we couldn't go public, it became very clear very quickly that these operators, for lack of a better term, who really just had very little interest in doing anything other than just trying to milk this for everything that they could possibly get out of it.
Right, sure. That whole industry.
Yeah, I mean, it just became very clear that they had no clue what they were doing. I walked away from the company entirely. My mom, who I had been working with up until that point, stayed on for about another 5, 6, 7 months. And then everything ultimately shut down.
Yeah, I think we were all under this impression you could throw money out the window and it would double before it hit the street. It was just, it was so easy. But I think everybody knew that wasn't gonna last. Yeah. Amazing that Amazon survived and got to where it is, But that's
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I believe, if I remember correctly, we launched one of the first 500 fully functional e-commerce sites in 1995 in and around the exact same quarter that Amazon launched their first iteration of their site. So we were right there. They just made better choices, evidently. So there you have it.
Yeah, they survived through it. Yeah. The funny thing is, or ironic thing is, that during this whole pandemic thing, he's probably benefiting more than anybody. I mean, their sales have to be through the roof.
Oh, he's killing it. Yeah. I mean, and God bless his heart. Why? I mean, a lot of people have. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have, what their feelings about what's going on in the world of Amazon, and I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same token, it's you can't have. 7. What do they have now? I mean, it's ridiculous. Now it's like almost 300,000 employees, something like that.
It's a large number. Yeah,
insane number. And you're gonna have people who are unhappy no matter what you do.
Of course. Look, that whole thing came out when Michael Bloomberg was running for president. I'm a big Bloomberg fan because I'm from back here and whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, look, when you run an organization that big, you're going to have employee complaints. There's going to be harassment complaints. There's going to be things that are settled. That's just the way the business is done. Doesn't make you a bad person or, a criminal or Harvey Weinstein. I mean, that's a little bit of the other end of the spectrum, but it is what it is. Okay. Yeah. So then you said, so you walked away from liquor.com because that all imploded, and you got in, you were saying, then what did you get into?
So that was real estate. Then we got into real estate.
Right. What kind of development were you doing? Like
commercial, residential, mostly rental apartments, some condo. I did a couple of condo projects, but mostly rental, residential, and then got into some mixed use and some office and retail and so on.
Were you putting the deals together, or you were hiring the GC and all that type of stuff?
Yeah, totally putting the deals together, putting putting the syndicate together, grabbing the
Right.
grabbing the GC and all those, all those folks for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Develop.
And how long did you do that for?
That lasted a good 6-7 years. I did about 50 odd million in real estate development over that period of time. And then, well, we know what happened in real estate.
That's what happens, right?
2007, 8, 9, that period of time. And interestingly enough, after the real estate meltdown, which, hit us pretty hard and hit others, really hard as well. I was able to get back the liquor.com domain and eventually brought on a team to build that company. And in 2019, we sold that to Barry Diller's company, IAC.
Oh, so you rebuilt that and then you sold it off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, going back to the real estate, what got you to go from nightclubs to liquor? I understand because it was your family business.
Yeah.
How did you jump into real estate?
It was just one of those things, man, where like everybody was talking about the booming economy around real estate.
Right, that's true.
And I think I remember it was right around 1999. So it was right before the true.com implosion, but it was right around 1999 or so. Maybe it was even early 2000.
Right.
And I was in a convenience store, and I heard a couple of these guys talking to each other. The clerk behind the counter and his buddy was a taxi cab driver who just stopped in to chat him up a little bit. And they were the taxi cab driver was talking about how he had just flipped out of a contract for a condominium unit that he had never taken possession of, and was able to flip out of that contract and made like $50,000 or whatever the number was.
Yeah, people were doing stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and so
they're basically wholesaling the contract, right? They weren't even taking possession of the property.
Yeah. So kind of said to myself, look, if this guy can do that and make some pretty good money, just flipping a piece of paper, let me see what I can do in this space. And I figured, I've always kind of been of the philosophy that if someone else can do it, with pretty rare exception, there's no reason why I can't.
Right. Well, so I already see the theme, the reinvention theme going. I mean, we've all done that, I guess. I think I've reinvented myself, but I've been a lawyer since the beginning. It's just different kinds of law and practice. So then we hit the next bubble or implosion or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Which I guess in 2007 and 8, I wish I understood real estate better than like I do now.
Yeah.
But that's that whole herd of people that just kept refinancing, and boom, they hit a wall. Whoops. And Wall Street had enough. So.
Yeah, it was more a matter of just people couldn't pay.
Right.
That's ultimately just giving people loans
that they shouldn't have been in. Yeah. Right. I think that's what happened was people were able to, for a while, they were able to get out of these deals and refinance. It was like, what's the game? Like hot potato, right? And the music stops and you end up holding the thing at the end.
Yeah.
You get screwed.
Yeah. To some extent, it's a little bit of a Ponzi scheme, so to speak. It's it's just one selling it to the other, selling it to the other, selling it to the other. And they just, like you said, just keep stacking it. And that doesn't necessarily work too well in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Actually, one of the areas of my practice that grew, and then we've kind of gotten out of it, were short sales because nobody really knew. Certainly the realtors didn't know what to do with these properties. I had a client who had 80 properties. He had partnered with different people to do their, single family homes or 2-family homes. They would renovate them, flip them, rent them, and the whole thing collapsed. And then all these realtors were coming to us and they said, we don't know what to do. Like, what do you do with these short sales?
Yeah.
On the legal side, we started learning them, and we made money, but it wasn't that. It was a lot of work to get the banks to move on these things, especially since short sales were a very unknown, area of the real estate.
We tried short selling a couple of our properties for years. It like just couldn't get the banks to move it all. And part of the issue in those days was there were servicers who had these huge, basically conduit type loans where they would package all of these mortgage securities together. And so you'd have 1,000 mortgages sitting in one particular security.
Right.
And that security in itself was managed by a servicer. And so if one of those mortgages within that package had an issue, it was really, really hard to get people to move.
Right. Yeah. And you had so many layers, like the last guy didn't know about it and the first guy didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really until the whole market collapsed where they were forced to set up these systems to deal with them. They had a huge lapse rate. So we did that for a while. And then, yeah, that's kind of how I learned the whole mortgage market and all these people that shouldn't have had loans to begin with. And you could breathe, they would give you a mortgage because they didn't care, because you and I were the guys on Wall Street. We're selling it to someone else.
Yeah.
What a week. I still have guys that work on Wall Street that are researching these loans that are coming at defaulting still, trying to figure out, because they're trying to point the finger at us and say, well, we did something wrong. And they follow it backwards. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So after, okay, so real estate ended in about 2007, 2008. And then did you start doing a lot of stuff you're doing now in terms of
that's
teaching? And
exactly. That's when I kind of had that wake up call and just said, look, the things that I'm doing are all well and good and meaningful to, I guess helpful is a better word, helpful to me and those closest to me, but really no one else. And so, it's where I just kind of looked in the mirror and said, is this how you want to be remembered? Is this, you're going to go down as just the guy that made some decent money, and it wasn't even like I was making great money. It's not like we're talking about billionaire, type level money. At that point you go, okay, I can play that game a little bit longer, but reality is you're doing okay. I wouldn't say that I was playing small, but I certainly wasn't, living large, right, to any stretch of imagination. So that's when I really just sat back and said, let me see what I can do here around shifting the focus from trying to do what I can to just help myself to let me see if I can help others who may let's just say they're having similar struggles to what I've had throughout my entire adult life, which is just trying to figure out what it is that I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
So that's when I started down the path of writing and starting to do some speaking and just sharing some of the things that have been helpful to me over the course of my career. Not that I had all the answers, but I figured I could help people that were a couple steps behind me.
Right, because you had enough life experience to know that. That's one of the, I think if I look back, I don't know if I would be a lawyer again. I guess it was good education. Look, I went to law school. It's helpful and everything, but I've reinvented myself 4 or 5 times, and I like doing podcasting. I don't make a living at it, obviously. And I like, being a business lawyer. But like right now, for example, my business is dead. All my small businesses are closed for the most part. I have a couple of calls, couple of things. Unfortunately, I had to do a probate for somebody because someone died, and I do some wills. But even in New Jersey, they're hard to get signed. They didn't allow us to do online notaries, like for everything else except wills. I was like, thanks, that's great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So let's get into, because I'm fast. I'm a big fan, and I reached out to you because of the videos that I watch and the things that I've read and all your stuff. But maybe we can get into a little bit about, like how you got into the reinvention stuff and what you're doing, what you're saying, and what advice you have for people, especially now. It's such a difficult time. I know there's so many businesses that are going to go out, because there's going to be people like, let's say you have a restaurant in town and you were paying your bills. We're making a fortune, but you're paying your bills. Now you're looking at your wife and you're saying, should we go through another 90 days of having to get inventory in and rebuild the business just so we can barely get by? Maybe there's something else we could do. So I think there's going to be a fair amount of people that do that. So I'd like to know, you're the guru, so I'd like to know some things from you.
Yeah. First of all, I would just say, number one, don't make any decisions during the quarantine, like life-changing.
Good advice. Right.
Because you can have a decent sense of what it is that you want for your life or what you want for your business in terms of what you want your new normal to be post quarantine. But I would simply advise against making any life or business changing decisions, because this is an extraordinary period of time.
Yeah, and things will settle eventually.
Things will settle, and where we're at right now. There is a clouding of judgment. It's just for lack of a better term, it's being under the influence of whatever it is that you want to call it. it's pretty similar to being like just in a perpetual state of of being drunk or being high or whatever. I mean, it's like it's just such a weird period of time.
Yeah, right.
So I think it makes sense, in my humble opinion, to create the list of what is most important to you and what you want your life or your business, really to look like coming out of this. But in terms of making any changes, like I keep hearing about, all these people who are getting divorced and filing, and this, that, and the other. And it's like, just,
right.
it's not a period of time in which you can really evaluate what is going on from the right frame of mind.
Yeah, because everything's so exaggerated, right? You're all in close quarters, and
and to your point, a lot of what has happened through no fault of their own.
Yeah.
In other words, if you look at the .com crash, right, as an example, there were ideas on napkins being funded with millions of dollars.
Right.
There were profits to earnings ratios on stocks, PE ratios that were way off. I mean, right. I'm looking at some now that are like, 300-400 right now. And it's just like, historically, those numbers are not sustainable.
Right.
And so what you're seeing is really for the first time, certainly in my lifetime, certainly in yours as well, Mitch.
Yeah.
Is you're seeing that people are getting hurt and getting hammered and are on the, on the nail end of being the hammer and the nail of a situation that is completely out of their control.
Right.
And so you have some really smart, capable people who are questioning their own abilities to make smart decisions. And the God's honest truth is it's a crying shame when you look at what's going on with so many people who are really, really smart and have done all the right things, but are having their butts handed to them during this period of time.
Yeah.
So
it's kind of different than what happened in 07, 08. Then you had people to blame, right? You had the whole financial system and people who really didn't know any better, and they're getting a mortgage, and then all the banks went into hiding because they caused the problem. Now that at least they're not going into hiding.
And a lot of those folks got bailed out, where the average Joe did not.
Correct. Now, hopefully some of us are getting bailed out, but you're right. It's I think that's one of the frustrating things that people are feeling is that they're like, why is this happening to me? I didn't do anything. I mean, look, you could argue all day long. We should have been more prepared. The president should handle this thing. He knew what was going on, but at the end of the day, this was coming. So maybe we'll be more prepared next time. But I think there's very few people in this country that can say, maybe you can, I certainly can't, hey, I can take a 2-month vacation. You can't do that. The average American.
And the average business owner. And what I will say is really concerning to me is how many businesses, forget about families. I mean, we all know that 40% of households cannot write a $500 emergency check, right? I mean, like we're not even going to get into that. When you look at the businesses and the impact that, and let's be honest, I mean, it's not like we're talking about a year here. For most places right now, we're sitting at about 6 weeks, something like that, about a month and a half. Right. Somewhere right in there. And it's astounding the number of businesses that are unable to withstand. I mean, just they cannot get through a 30 to 60 day window of everything going to hell in a handbasket. And that lack of preparedness is if nothing else comes out of this, I hope that you see it on the individual level, on the familial level, and also on the organizational level, in
Right.
terms of people recognizing that they need to operate differently.
Right. Well, I think that it's partially their fault and it's partially not being prepared. But I think some of it is, and you live on the West Coast and I live on the East Coast, we live in two of the most expensive areas of the country. There's a lot of families that they have a couple of kids, they got to deal with the cost of college, they're trying to save, they're trying to spend, they're trying to live. And there's not a lot of left, at the end of the day. And, I don't know a lot of people that are so, what's the word? Loose with their money, that they're just throwing money out the window and they're woohoo, and they don't care, they don't save. I think they just don't seem to have the resources to be able to, they got so many buckets to fill that they don't see, the savings bucket, the emergency fund always seems to get the end of the thing, because they're living on today. They're not living for tomorrow. I'm not saying that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's just different.
Yeah. And again, it's not a matter of, and I agree with you. I don't think it's a matter of living
too high,
sort of loose, with their expenditures and so on. But at the same token, it really does make you pause, at the very least, just pause.
Yeah.
To examine, what is most important to you, and are you, are you, because money is, as we're all seeing here, it's much easier to let it go than it is to bring it in.
Right.
And so I think what will come out of this is, at least what I hope will come out of this, is an increased awareness of where those dollars are going,
right,
on a day-to-day basis, and really giving pause to whether or not an expenditure is needed.
Yeah, I mean, don't we kind of live in a society now, unlike 20 or 30 years ago, that begs you to spend money? I mean, begs you. You get emails every 10 minutes to spend money, this, that, Wayfair, all these crazy websites they got deals, they got this and that, and people fall prey to it. I think it's going to be difficult, but I guess they're going to have to figure out, this is going to happen again. If it's a virus or something else, and we're in a global economy, things are going to change. My biggest concern is not the health impact, because I think we'll deal with the health side of it at some point. We'll get a vaccine. It's the financial and the economic impact on society, because you just said that the health of our economy has to do with how fast money changes hands. So if you're holding on to your money, you don't want to pay your bills on time because you're like, well, I might need this next week. It puts us in a recession, pushes us towards a depression.
Oh yeah.
Even, so that's always the difficulty of it.
Yeah.
All right. So we already know no quick decision-making.
No quick decision-making, for sure.
Okay. And that's number one. So what else?
And I do think it's a good time to reevaluate what is most important to you. I mean, from the standpoint of maybe I'll make a little bit less money,
right,
by taking a different job than the one that I had before the quarantine, or maybe I'll quit that job altogether and just work from home and try to do some things from home, because that 2-hour commute each way was killing me.
right.
And so I do think that there's going to be a reprioritization of what people really believe to be most important, and you may find actually that there are some people who go the opposite way too, where they say, well, more conservative, but also say, I need to spend more time out of the house because a lot of things have become clear during this period of time where, like, I need more human interaction. And so anyway, the point being, I think you're going to see it on both ends of the spectrum there. But what I do believe we'll see quite a bit of is companies relaxing a lot of their FaceTime type policies.
Yeah.
Where so many companies are just, okay, if you're not sitting there at 10 o'clock,
you're not working.
here. If you weren't sitting there at 6 o'clock, you weren't like, and
Right.
and recognizing that people can still get done what they need to do without just having to sit in front of someone showing you that it's being done.
I think that's going to have a huge impact on the office marketplace, the rental marketplace for offices. I think companies, especially if they're looking to cut back and save money now, they're going to say, well, we don't need 10,000 square feet. We can do this on 2,500 square feet because now we found out our call center doesn't have to be here. People can get there 5 minutes before and we can tap into talent all over the country. I think that's going to, I wouldn't want to be a guy who owns a lot of office space right now.
Yeah. Although
maybe.
Well, there is that. And then I think there's also, you're going to see a huge uptick in drop ship and e-commerce and so on. You'll see
right. Logistics, shipping, right.
For sure. But I do also think that you're going to see, just from a real estate perspective, I think you're going to see a nice uptick in terms of live work type space where, before we were kind of in these micro type units and the shift was moving smaller. Right. I actually think you may see a shift back to larger units that have room for home office and live work type environment.
Especially in the bigger cities, you're probably right, because there won't be office buildings anymore, and that'll be converting them into apartments with lofts. And the question is, can the market absorb it? But I guess they always can. I'm curious of your opinion, because and maybe you're a little skewed. You have a skewed view because you're dealing with people that want to better themselves and are looking for this, looking at that. My concern is that the average individual who may not be going back to their job, maybe they can't or whatever, doesn't have the skills or the wherewithal or the, seeking you out or learning and educating themselves to be an entrepreneur. I think the word has become so, it's trite. Is that the right word?
Maybe,
it's
sure.
Overused. And that's why I started the podcast. That's why it's called The Accidental Entrepreneur, because I constantly deal with people who go into business or start another business and they don't do any of the planning, take time to learn, like you said, plan for how much capital you need because you're not going to make money for 6 months. And it concerns me that there'll be a lot of people that maybe can't go back to work or don't want to, like you said, it was killing them. Question is what your opinion is. Do they have the skills, the average American, to everybody can be an entrepreneur? I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. It's a valid question. Reality is no, not everyone has the ability, nor should everyone be an entrepreneur. What I think that we're going to see, and I hope that we're going to see, is what everyone does have the opportunity to do, which is to live as their most powerful version of themselves.
Right.
So whatever that version is of themselves that they can get to, that is as living larger than how they were living before. I think you're going to see folks really tap into being as much in alignment of who they truly are, right, than ever before. So what I think you'll see is a twofold sort of opportunity here. One is a shift towards helping people really identify, what it is that puts fire in their soul and how to live in that alignment.
Right.
And you'll see a smaller percentage of those folks want to actually turn that into any sort of meaningful endeavor. And so the opportunity to show them what to do and how to do that, I have full confidence will be a big part of this shift as well.
Well, I guess this whole thing, if one thing it did was shift our population closer towards having a better understanding of technology and its use of technology. I mean, there's people on Zoom now that, never used a computer, let alone, they never did anything like that. And I'm going to meetings with all kinds of people that are, I guess at the beginning, you noticed a lot of people had trouble getting on these meetings. Now you don't see it so much anymore. They've all worked it out. They figured out, talk to friends, whatever.
Yeah,
we had a Zoom call for Easter. Getting our 80-year-old Italian relatives on the call was a challenge, to say the least.
Yeah. But now they know. Now they can show you how to make your favorite dish. So there you go.
Right. Exactly. Well, the funny thing is we're all separated, but we're more connected in some regards than we've ever been.
Yeah. And at the same token, I think you realize who your true friends are and who you actually want to spend time with when this is all said and done, because those are to the people you actually reached out to when you had nothing else to do.
Yeah, life's a little too short. So what do you have coming up for you? I mean, obviously you're not traveling and speaking anytime soon, but what do you got going on?
We're still pressing forward with Podcast Magazine every month, and we've got some really big issues coming up on that. So we're just definitely heads down, focused on that. Our May issue clocked in at 150 pages, and we just keep growing that. So,
are you shipping a print version still during the pandemic, or is it all electronic right now?
So it's primarily digital. We do have a limited print run of each issue. So we will hopefully partner with a Condé Nast or one of the bigger players in the space there, or maybe Spotify will just come in and buy us all together because they've got money to throw around at the podcast space.
That's perfect.
So, but I'd like to get a partner on board who can get this thing on stands, across the country, and eventually I'd like to license this out and/or increase the title to include foreign languages as well, because I know that podcasting is continuing to grow in a number of markets. I think there's an opportunity there too.
No, I've had people reach out to me there was a woman from Malaysia, Singapore. I've had people reach out all over the world. I don't know how to find my podcast. I only have like 40 episodes and 2,000 downloads. So
yeah, nice, man.
They find it. We're getting there. So and people can find your videos and sign up for your class and everything on your website, right?
Yeah, just steveolsher.com. Best place is podcastmagazine.com. Just start there, and let's get you in our world there.
Get on your mailing list. Yeah, and I'll put all that in the show notes.
Sounds
so
good.
People can find the links. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and helping me, because you helped me grow from a little podcaster to maybe a podcaster could do this for a living someday.
There you go.
We'll see.
Well, good. Yeah, man. Good luck. Thanks for having me on.
Steve,
appreciate it.
Stay safe and healthy out in San Diego.
Yeah, man. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.